Hello, Gerald. Can you hear me? Okay, let us see how we can resolve. Hello, can you unmute now? Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Gerald.
Yes, hello. Works now.
Okay, cool. Can you try your camera and also try to share your slide?
You
Sorry
can
for
see
the
my camera,
technical
right?
glitch. I can hear you.
You can see my camera?
So far don't have lah.
I already turned on my camera leh.
Hold on ah. Yeah, well, this here is also enabled this side. But never mind. I think that is the least of the technical issue. Probably, can you try and share your slide?
I don't have the option to share. It only says only meeting organizers and presenters can share.
Okay. Okay, this is interesting. Hold on, yeah. Let us check. quickly before the time. Oh my God. Normally it doesn't happen. Can you try now?
Okay, I have the option now. Let me try to share.
Yep. I will admit the guest at about 8:30.
Okay.
Then I'll do an introduction about yourself and grow bean sprout and also
Okay.
the Thai market. That will be good.
Yep.
All right. Then another thing is probably while you're presenting, I might have some small interruption if I can chip in some in that context so that you won't need to be presenting the whole thing just across the board. So
Sure, that'd be
yeah,
very helpful.
yeah, so that we are all not too psychopathic in doing this.
Okay, do you see my sharing?
Hold on. From my side, not yet. Me, I do see something. Let me see from my phone. I actually can't see.
You can't see.
Yeah, probably you can try. If not, the worst case, probably I can just add in
Help me
the
to share
PDF
the
you
screen.
shared. Okay.
Hello, I think something is quite weird here because I tried to add Gerald as a speaker presenter, but it ends up Amanda is the speaker.
Okay, you see it now? That is your sharing or my sharing?
I'm actually sharing on behalf. Probably just kill me on the next slide lah.
Okay, I think like that easier. We'll just do that. Can.
Okay, then you can also chat a bit in that context. All right,
Okay,
I'll
can.
admit the guest.
But can you
Sorry
turn
for
on
the
the
technical
camera?
glitch.
Can you
We
turn
are
on the
actually
camera?
also trying to see how to work this out.
Can you turn on the camera?
You can't see my camera. My camera is already on.
Because
Actually
we have,
can't, you know.
I have enabled you to allow you to turn on the camera.
Okay, I shall admit the guys in first. Up. Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar tonight. Thank you for joining us this evening. Hope everyone had their dinner. Myself, I'm Adrian. I'll be hosting, moderating for tonight's event. And tonight we have Gerald Wong from Singapore, a friendly neighbor, which is a CEO of Grow Bean Sprout, a very prominent speaker for XGX and also his academy. He actually has a very strong profile in research, head of research, and also a best analyst since 2016 up to 2020, nominated by clients. Yeah, so he started a Grow Bean Sprout in the objective in helping retailers to achieve financial wellness, something we at Kananga believe too. And tonight he's going to share with us on something has been studying diligently, which is Thai market. He will talk about what his thoughts about on the recent election, and what are opportunities ahead for Thai blue chips. And probably I can also chip in some of my view from the technical perspective. And yeah, so that will be the theme for tonight. And before we actually start, let us, I mean, have some prayers for the victims from Thailand. It is a very sad incident of what recently happened, and yeah, we hope that the country will do even better in terms of where it's on its trajectory of coming back. Yeah. All right. Without further ado, I will introduce Gerald into the loop. Gerald, you may start. I think I will control the slide from here. Bear with me, guys. We have a bit of a technical glitch here, so I'll be sharing Gerald's slide. So yeah, there could be a bit of a coordination issue, but do bear with us. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone, and good evening to everyone. Thanks so much for joining tonight's webinar. I hope you have had your dinner, but if you haven't had your dinner, don't worry about it. You can enjoy your food while you're going through tonight's session, as I will have a quick chat with the participants tonight around what is happening in the Thai market and what we can potentially look forward to for the rest of this year. Okay, so if I will start by going to the next slide.
Next slide. Disclaimer.
Okay, so as we shared earlier, really tonight's purpose is to enable everyone to educate ourselves and learn more about different investment opportunities. So it's really for information and education purposes only and should not be taken to be financial advice. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide.
All right.
Okay, so there are a few things that we'll discuss today in terms of the agenda. We recently saw a very major event in the Thai market, which is the elections. So if you haven't been keeping up with the news, we'll provide a quick update around what is the impact of the Thai elections. Thereafter, we'll look at a few Thai blue chip names. You might not be familiar with these names. It might be your first time hearing about these companies, but don't worry about it because for the next 45 minutes, I'm going to help you understand more about these companies. Last but not least, as investors, we always want to think about how we can make more money, how we can potentially identify good opportunities. I guess that's why everyone is here tonight. So
Yes,
we'll take a
Gerald.
look at this product that's called Singapore Depository Receipts and how they can potentially be used as another instrument to consider to be able to increase our investment opportunity set. Okay,
That's a
and last
very
but not least,
exciting.
we are going to make this as interactive as possible, and we have a Q&A session at the end for everyone to be asking your question. But I'm sure along the way, we'll be having a very fruitful discussion.
All right.
Okay, so we'll go to the next slide and start on the discussion about the Thai blue chip names. Okay, so we'll start by looking at how has the Thai stock market performed so far this year. Okay, so for some of you who might be familiar with, say, the US market, notwithstanding the fall that we see over the last few days, actually the US market has done very well so far this year. As at the end of July, we saw that the Nasdaq was actually up by close to 37%. If I look at the S&P 500, also doing very well, up about 20%. Okay, so what we are seeing is that because inflation has started to come down, there are expectations that the Fed might be quite close to ending its rate hikes. So actually, for most part of this year, the US stock market has done very well. If you come back closer to home, if you look at some of the Asian markets, where I am in Singapore, the STI slightly up for this year. And if you look at the Hang Seng Index, another market that you might be following very closely, even with all the concerns about the Chinese property market, whether there's going to be a very sharp economic slowdown, the Hang Seng Index as of 31st July is actually still positive. But what really stands out to us is that if you look at the Thai market, if I were to look at the data as at end July this year, then the stock exchange of Thailand is effectively down about 7% so far this year. So that is why many people actually say that the Thai stock market has done very poorly so far this year. And that is really the idea behind today's session, in which we will look at whether the Thai market is actually worth a relook.
Ooh.
Okay. So with that, we will look at what the economic backdrop has been for the Thai economy. If you look at the GDP growth, actually, what we started to see is a very strong rebound in 2022, and that trend actually continued to the first quarter of this year. So the Thai economy grew by 2.6% last year, first quarter, another 2.6% growth. But by the second quarter, it actually moderated down to 1.8%. Okay, so we are starting to see some signs of slowing down of the Thai economy. And your question is, why is that the case? Because you might have think that, oh, because of the reopening, because of more tourists going to Thailand, the Thai economy should actually be picking up. But actually, in the second quarter, we started to see a bit of a slowdown. Okay, so we are going to find out what are some of these reasons on the next slide. Okay, so what we see here is that if you look at the consumer sentiment, it was very strong for most of the past year, in that we continuously see a rebound from below 50 last year. By the time we were at June this year, the consumer sentiment had reached a 3-year high of 56.7. Okay, but by July, it actually started to moderate. And that is one of the reasons that is driving the underperformance of the Thai market, because of this tapering down of consumer sentiment. Okay, so what actually caused this dampening of consumer sentiment? If you recall, a few months ago, there was actually an election in the Thai market. And after the elections, there was no clear-cut prime minister. Okay, there was the party that gained a significant amount of vote in the election, but because of the way the parliament is, he was not able to secure enough votes to become the prime minister. So because of that, there was a lot of uncertainty in the market. The Thai baht actually weakened. People were not sure how this uncertainty is going to last for. And as investors, all we know is that we don't like this uncertainty. So that is why the consumer sentiment actually came off. The Thai market actually came off because of this uncertainty around what is going to happen next. But the good news is that as of September, we actually finally managed to see the Thai government being formed. We have the new prime minister being elected. So at this point in time, the Thai government is made up of 11 different political parties. You might think that, oh, actually, Malaysian politics is really fairly complicated. But actually, if I was to look at Thai politics, you actually have got 11 parties now that are making up the government. And that is going to be something that we'll talk about more in detail later, to understand what are some of the policies that this coalition government will then actually pass through.
For a moment, Gerald, I thought our politics here is already quite it was made into a comic strip, by the way. All right, I'll proceed to the next slide.
If I were to look at what is happening now, I guess the positive thing is finally we have a government being formed. That is good news for the market. And with that, we started to see some recovery in the Thai baht from the lows during the middle of this year. So that is a sign that investors are starting to gain more confidence in the Thai economy and starting to bring money back into Thailand once again. Okay, so that is really the macro backdrop that we have seen. If I go to the next slide. So if I were to look at what this would translate to the economy, effectively, there were various policies that were raised during the election campaigning. Okay, so while we may not know exactly what the new government will do, what we can do is to look at what were some of the things that they said and promised during the election campaign to have a sense of what will be the key direction of the government. Okay, so the first thing is around wanting to grow the GDP by 5% per year. Okay, if you saw the numbers earlier, last year they only grew at 2.6%. So being able to bring up to 5% per annum is actually quite a significant increase. Okay, Adrian, do you know how much the Malaysian economy is growing this year? About?
I used to track the news, but I mean, I
Okay.
must be a bit ashamed of myself.
It's
A bit of a
okay.
background. I was an analyst, so but I was looking at the news and I tracked all this data until I turned to the dark side, looking into technicals. So I have no clue.
Okay, so I believe that is the case that many people are wondering as well. Is this 5% number considered high or low? Just to give you some perspective around this 5% number, it is a fairly high level of GDP growth. If you look at what a lot of economists are forecasting for, say, the Chinese economy this year, if they're able to get 5% growth for the Chinese economy this year, it is really considered a very strong number. Singapore, as an example, this year we're just expected to grow by 1 to 2%. So if the government can accelerate the growth to 5%, then that is going to be quite a remarkable feat. And that will definitely be boosting the stock market quite significantly. And how is the government intending to do that? So through two key approaches. One is to boost the income, and number two, to grow domestic consumption. Okay, so in order to be able to drive this GDP growth, a lot of the policies are centered around trying to increase the income of the Thai population. I'm sure that is what all of us want as well. But the government has actually set very tangible targets. Number one, to raise the daily minimum wage to 600 Thai baht by 2027. Okay, so that is something that is consistently being talked about because it is something that the government has said they want to be doing. Number two, to increase the monthly household income to at least 20,000 Thai baht. And number three, for those with a bachelor's degree, to be able to raise the starting salary to 25,000 Thai baht by 2027. Okay, so a lot of policies around wanting to boost the income of the population. Next, we also see a number of measures that are more targeted. One is consumption related, to have a one-time giveaway of 10,000 Thai baht to all Thais above 16 years old, and this will be spent within 4 kilometers of their residence within the next 6 months. So they can't bring this to KL to shop. They can't come to Singapore to watch the F1. They can only spend it within 4 km of where they live.
That's pretty quite well thought of.
Yeah.
Not bad.
So obviously not intended for them to actually start spending it outside of Thailand, but actually to be able to drive the domestic consumption using this one-time giveaway.
Okay.
I think the other thing that's quite smart, if you realize this will be done through a digital wallet, so it's another thing that the Thai government is trying to push very strongly. It's not like a voucher that you need to go and redeem, but they are trying to boost the e-wallet adoption. So effectively, this will be given to them through the digital wallet.
That's
Okay.
cool.
And last but not least, the Thai tourism sector is something that drives the economy very significantly. What they really want to do is to bring back tourists, given how badly impacted the sector has been because of COVID-19. And one of the measures is to ease the visa restrictions for Chinese and Indian tourists.
Okay.
So in a nutshell, this is what the government has proposed to do. We are going to look at how these different policies will impact the different Thai companies.
Okay. Shall we?
Okay, so now we are going to look at individual companies and see how they have actually done and what we can actually learn about these different Thai companies. Okay, so for the next 30 minutes, imagine that you are traveling to Thailand with me. I know you may be maybe still stuck in office, maybe looking after your kids, but just imagine you're coming on a trip to Bangkok with me as I'll bring you through a few familiar tourist spots and look at what are the companies that are involved in these different things that we are going to be looking at. Okay.
Probably I'm in Thailand now, Gerald, with webinar going on.
Oh, you are? Yeah, then you should be
No,
the
no,
one doing
no.
the webinar instead. Okay, so the first place that we are going to talk about is the Thai airport. Okay, so the first thing that you will see once you arrive in Thailand, after we take our very short 1 hour flight there, is to land at the airport. And there's this company, Airports of Thailand. They actually operate the Suvarnabhumi Airport in Bangkok. Some of you may take a budget airline and you may land at another airport, Dom Mueang International Airport. That is actually operated by Airports of Thailand as well. So in total, they operate 6 key airports in Thailand. And with these airports, they actually account for over 80% of Thailand's air traffic. Okay, because these are all the airports that have the bulk of the traffic. Apart from the ones in Bangkok, you also have the one in Phuket, Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, and Hat Yai. And these are effectively where all the tourists often like to go to. Okay, so effectively, the key thing that you can remember from today's session, there are 19 airports in Thailand. Airports of Thailand operate 6 of them, but with 6 of them, they effectively already account for over 80% of Thailand's air traffic. Okay, so it is a company with a very dominant share towards the entire Thai tourism sector.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go to the next slide. You might be wondering how have the tourist arrivals in Thailand actually fared? So this is a pictorial representation of the last few years. If you look at 2019 before COVID, it got close to 40 million tourist arrivals that year. Okay. Because of COVID, 2020, it fell to 6.7 million. Because from January to March, you still got about 2 million tourist arrivals per month. But by the time we got to 2021, because of the lockdown, because of the travel restrictions, it was down to less than 1 million. 2022, we started to see a bit of a rebound because in the second half of the year, the government loosened the border restrictions and tourists started to come back. I was in Thailand in June 2022, but I still had to take a PCR test, go through a bit of a quarantine to go there. So you don't see a lot of tourists going back in 2022 yet. But if you look at the first half of this year, there were 13 million tourist arrivals in Thailand in the first half of this year. And with this, the government is targeting that this year they want 25 million tourists to be arriving in Thailand. Okay, so this will effectively mean that we are above where it was in 2020, 2021, 2022, but still slightly below where it was in 2019 before COVID.
All right. Would you think that it is because the airlines are still trying to recuperate from the COVID time, or most of the country have not really start mobilizing flying? People are not traveling just yet.
Okay, so another important number to remember. So if I were to look at the breakdown of this tourist arrival, say back in 2019, of this 40 million tourists, 30% of them would be Chinese tourists. Okay,
Oh,
so
that's a lot.
Chinese tourists play a very important role towards the Thai tourist arrivals. For those of you who have been to Bangkok or other parts of Thailand before, if you look around, the tourists will likely be Chinese because it is a very popular tourist destination amongst the mainland Chinese. So I think if you look at 40 million versus 25 million, the key difference here is that the Chinese tourists have not actually returned in full force as yet. There are still visa
okay.
restrictions, and that is why the policy move to be able to ease the visa restriction for them is actually such an important one.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
So yeah, maybe for us, we don't have this issue about traveling to Thailand, so we don't feel it that much. But
Yep.
if I was to look at where a big part of the tourists are actually coming from, we can see that the Chinese tourists have not actually returned fully as yet, and that is the reason why even for this year's numbers, it is not expected to be anywhere close to the 2019 numbers.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so that is what it is at this point in time, but that also presents the upside for those who are looking at airports of Thailand,
That's very
because
true.
it also means that there's still scope for the tourist arrival numbers to be recovering further from where we are today. Okay, so we look at the glass maybe from a half full perspective, and from that angle, we still have significant scope for the tourist arrival numbers in Thailand to be recovering because of the fact that Chinese tourists can still improve from where it is at this point in time.
Okay. That's a positive side. Probably we will take a view from the context that the worst is over.
Yeah, I think you can quite clearly say that the worst is over because if you look at
Yes.
the numbers here, 2021 is like less than 1 million people. We were all
Horrendous.
locked down at home, snatching toilet paper. So I think we are past that kind of stage.
Yes,
But what
thank
we are
God.
more hopeful for is that maybe air tickets wouldn't be so expensive, and that we can actually do more traveling compared to what we are able to do at this point in time.
Yeah. Okay. Shall I jump to the next slide?
Yes, so maybe we can look at how this has actually affected airports of Thailand. So for today's webinar, I mentioned that we are going to travel to Thailand. So these are a few snapshots of the Suvarnabhumi airport. What you can see is that, yes, we are starting to see the crowd starting to come back. I'm not sure whether this is what you see at KLIA as well, but if I was to go Changi Airport in Singapore, it is also fairly crowded these days. And that is actually a sign that the tourist numbers are definitely improving, just like what we see in terms of the numbers. But I just wanted to take a few photos and share with everyone who has joined us tonight. Since I promised you that I'll bring you to Thailand to understand what is actually happening there.
Well, yeah, that's a very nice thought of you. Picking these are from the travels.
Yeah, so I was there actually just about 1 month ago, and I think for me it's my first time back in. It's actually first time back in Thailand this year, and I can see that definitely compared to when I was there last year when things were just starting to improve, the numbers have definitely picked up, and there are definitely more stores that are open at the airport compared to last year at this time.
Probably I would like to do some advertisement, do drop by to Malaysia, I'll bring you around.
Yeah, I'll be there at the end of this month. I have a lot of friends there.
Yeah. Okay, let me jump to the next slide.
Okay, so if I look at the traffic, okay, so earlier we saw the overall Thai tourism numbers. So now we are going to look at Airport of Thailand numbers because we are going to look at how the company has actually performed. If you look at 2021 versus 2022, recall earlier we saw that there was a bounce in the tourist arrivals into Thailand. With that, we saw that the total traffic handled by EOT more than doubled from 20 million to 47 million. Okay, if I look at what they have done in the 9 months of FY 2023, they have a September year end. So 9 months FY 2023 means the 9 months ending June this year. It has effectively gone up from 29 million to 74 million. So a very sharp increase in terms of the traffic, even though we still see that the numbers are not back to the 2019 levels, but already AOT traffic has picked up very significantly. Okay, so that number one is a good sign for airports of Thailand. Next, we'll see how has that translated to their revenue and profit.
Okay.
Okay, okay, so if I were to look at the more recent trend, if you look at the pink line, that is the 2023 number. The green line is the 2022 number. So the first thing we can tell from this is that the pink line is consistently above the green line, which means that we are seeing improvement in the traffic numbers this year versus last year. Okay, so that is a positive sign. But if I were to look at the pink line from March this year, it has effectively tapered off a bit over the last few months. So the post-COVID recovery has actually taken place, but we are not seeing a further improvement over the last few months. Okay, so that is one of the reasons why when we look at AOT share price later, despite the improvement in volume, the share price actually come off a bit over the last few months. And that is really because if I were to look at the monthly numbers, it has not shown that continuously improving trend like what we saw in 2022.
Okay. We shall dive into that in a short while.
Yep. So if I go to the next slide. Okay, so this is the revenue numbers for airports of Thailand. If you look at how they actually make money, really a few ways. Number one, whenever you fly through the airport, they will charge you a fee that is called the departure passenger service charge, which represents the bulk of their revenue. But apart from that, they also have other revenue sources, like for example, they rent out the space at the airport for duty-free stores. They earn a rental income from that as well. They effectively handle different services at the airport. That is something that they earn a service revenue from as well. So if you look at the breakdown of revenue, fairly evenly distributed between the different services that they provide at the airports that they operate.
Yep.
And if I were to look at the improvement in revenue, if you look at this thing called PSC, which is the passenger service charges, between 9 months FY22 and 9 months FY2023, it has actually grown very significantly from 2.8 billion Thai baht to 13 billion Thai baht. And that is really a reflection of the very strong improvement in tourist arrival numbers that we saw earlier.
Yep.
But apart from that, all other revenue lines, whether is it how much rent they are able to earn from the airport, the landing and parking charges from flights that are landing at the airport, it has all increased very significantly. And that has actually led to the revenue having doubled compared to the previous year.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the positive sign. The improvement in traffic is definitely translating to an improvement in revenue for airports of Thailand. Okay, and then we go to the next slide. So we see this improvement in revenue in FY 2022. That trend has continued all the way through to the FY 2023 in the third quarter. Because if you look at the third quarter numbers, it is at about 13 billion revenue. That is more than half of what it was in the first half of the fiscal year. So the revenue continuously improved, and with that, the profit is also improving. It was loss-making in the last two fiscal year. In the first half of this fiscal year, it started to generate a profit of about 2 billion. But in the third quarter of this year, it generated a profit of 3 billion, and that exceeds the profit that it was able to make in the first half of this year.
That's very strong, actually.
Yeah, so we do see that it's not just the crop is coming back, but it has really impacted its profit, like what we see here in terms of the revenue as well as its profit in the most recent quarter.
Yeah, and from the third quarter performance also, I think we can see how well the Thais have managed their costs for bouncing back versus the before they fall into the rate of 2022. I think they really did an amazing job in that context for the amount of passengers that they actually have garnered in for the year.
Correct. And remember, not all tourists are back yet. And that was why I wanted to show the chart earlier that we are actually now still more than 30% below where it was in 2019. But even with that, they are able to generate a profit already.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to look at how has that impacted the share price. If you look at the share price year to date, pretty much flat performance. Okay, so after 2022, we saw the very sharp recovery in the second half of last year with the rebound in arrivals. That number has tapered off a bit because of the fact that on a month-on-month basis, we don't see that sharp improvement in tourist arrival numbers anymore. And really, the next thing that investors are looking out for is that whether we'll continue to see a further improvement in tourist arrivals, especially if some of these policies were to be implemented that will allow more Chinese tourists to actually go back to Thailand as a tourist.
So Gerald, just to interrupt a bit, now that we are seeing such positives of AOT, yet the share price is actually on a range bound. I think that we all acknowledge that it's a good opportunity. Obviously, we all miss the 2020 and the 2021's opportunity on buying on the dips. So going forward, what do you think that it's more more reasonable action to take in terms of in taking the opportunity on AOT's weak share price? Should one be adopting something like a dollar cost averaging strategy on a monthly basis, or should we do a bit of allocation strategy in accumulating the shares? And uh, let's say if I put my investment horizon for about 6 months to a year, or probably a year would be much more fair in that context. How would you do it?
Okay, so I guess first and foremost, the question is, do you believe in the growth of ASEAN tourism? Okay, if I strongly believe in the growth of ASEAN tourism, and I guess that goes in with your long-term investment horizon idea,
All right.
then actually there are only that few companies within the whole of Southeast Asia that allows us exposure towards this growth in ASEAN tourism. Okay, in Malaysia, maybe you have MEHB. In Singapore, there is SETS. But in terms of the importance of the tourism sector towards the economy, there isn't a country where tourism is such a big part of the whole economy. And if I think about AOT that controls 80% of all of Thailand's air traffic, then effectively the first name that investors think about when they want to think about a Thai tourism name or even an ASEAN tourism name, airports of Thailand will probably be the one. Okay, so I think it is with this kind of backdrop that we can think about the positioning. If I am a strong believer of that and I believe that the traffic will grow in the longer term, then airports of Thailand would be something that we can consider for our portfolio because as the traffic continues to grow, as the number of flights that it is handling at the airports continues to grow, it will likely be able to generate a higher revenue from that, which will be in turn positive for shareholders. So I think that is the idea. Whether we do a DCA approach or whether we buy on dips, I guess those are really different options that we can all consider. So for example, if you think that you have the patience to do a DCA, then that is always a wise investment strategy. But otherwise, we can also look at different opportunities that can present itself. So COVID was one of them where effectively, because the numbers came out very sharply, but AOT was able to recover from it shortly after. So we see the share price actually now back to sharply above where it was during the COVID period. But if there are different, say now at this point in time, people are very concerned about Chinese economy, and that is why the tourist arrival numbers have not recovered as much. The share price has dipped a bit. then this could potentially be also another buying opportunity that we can consider, given that the share price has not recovered very strongly as yet, even though the tourist arrival numbers have started to pick up.
Okay, so let me, do you mind if I pull out my trading view chart for a moment, Gerald?
Please go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, let me try to give our audience a bit of a picture. Okay, so we are talking about the AOT's share price. So this is AOT's chart here, and I think that what Gerald has presented us a case that we're betting on the so-called recovery of the ASEAN tourism, especially for a country that of Thailand that is highly dependent on its tourism for its economy. I think from a weekly chart perspective, if I were to do a quick draw, right, it would present a certain opportunity. We can actually look at the zone of $69 Thai baht as one of the resistance zone now, a so-called support term resistance. And if we were to do on a longer term to look for that opportunity, the next level that we want to actually look out at quickly will be at 66 Thai baht. And this more for a longer accumulation. Probably you can do a bit of, from my thought, I think I would do a bit of heavier allocation where I would want to take some opportunity at the 66 range, but it might not reach there. So probably I think a bit of a starter to whet appetite would be interesting, but definitely not silang on the stock, guys. Yeah, so yeah, and yeah, this is something that if you look at the stochastic range, right? It was also back in actually March where 66 is where I use a reference point. And looking that if we were to be in the oversold zone, I hope that there's no more crazy uncertainty that's gonna happen in Thailand itself. Else it might not be able to sustain. Yeah. So, okay, so that's a quick one. So let me switch back to Gerald's slide.
Thank you
Okay.
so much for sharing the technical analysis with us.
I mean, we're trying to see if it works a bit more rather than I hope it does on this interaction so that everyone can benefit even for ourselves. And
So
especially
everyone
from
here
the
get two
insights
for
and
the
the
price of
study.
one. Got fundamental analysis and technical analysis.
Yeah. We try to give more for our clients, and we hope to see everyone actually learn the trade and grow together in that sense, better equipping people to do that. Yeah, so back to you.
Okay. So we have finished discussing airports of Thailand. We are going to move to the next stop. If I go to CPO.
Okay, CPO.
Okay, so earlier, remember, we are still supposed to be in Thailand. So the next thing that you'll probably see very often is the 7-Eleven store.
Yep.
So if you look at the convenience store market, I guess in Malaysia, you've got quite a number of these different convenience store operators. Likewise, in Thailand, if you are there as a tourist, you'll probably be trying to get a drink after a very hot day out, and buying some bottled water from the 7-Eleven store. This 7-Eleven chain is actually owned by this company called CPO, which is a very big consumer company in Thailand. Okay, if I look at the stores that it has, effectively three key segments. One is CVS, which is convenience stores. So the 7-Eleven stores that I mentioned earlier, that represents about 40% of its revenue. Next, we have retail stores, which you might be familiar with are the grocery stores. Effectively, the smaller scale retail stores that you are able to buy some groceries from, that would be part of CPO's portfolio as well. And last but not least, the wholesale stores, which are the larger concept retail stores, where you might even be able to buy some electrical appliances. Okay, so very diversified exposure to the different retail formats in the Thai market.
Okay.
Okay, so firstly, we want to focus on the convenience store because that is the bread and butter of CPO. It operates more than 14,000 of these stores in Thailand. 7,000 it actually operates by themselves, which is called the corporate stores, and another 7,000 through franchise. Okay, and
Hmm.
this number has consistently grown over the last 5 years. Even during COVID, they were able to grow the number of stores that it was operating in Thailand. The next thing that I wanted to point out is that it has a very dominant position in the convenience store market. So CPO operates a 7-Eleven chain. That is about 40% market share in the whole convenience store market in Thailand.
That's very huge. Very huge.
Yes, and not only that, it also has another brand called Lotus Go Fresh, another 28% market share. So together, it would actually have close to 70% market share in the entire Thai convenience store business.
Now I know why they are named CP all. I would thought that they sapu all lah. Well, it's quite a lame joke lah, but
Yeah, almost there already. 70% market share, you can almost sapu all.
uh,
Okay,
okay.
so earlier we saw that AOT has a very strong position in the Thai air traffic. The equivalent in the consumer space is CPO because in the convenience store segment alone, it has more than 70% market share. Okay, if I go to the next slide. So
Hmm.
earlier we saw that AOT was able to see stronger revenue and profit. If I look at CPO, that is the case as well. In the second quarter of this year, revenue up 8%, profit up 50%, improvement in gross margin and EBIT margin. And that is really a reflection of the increase in consumer spending that we have seen over the past quarter.
Hmm.
Okay, if you remember earlier, I shared that the consumer sentiment has improved continuously and reached a 3-year high in June this year, and that is translating to higher revenue and profit for CPO. Okay, so one of the key things if I want to make more profit is that I can open up more stores. If you look at the stores that CPO has opened every year consistently, day in, day out, more than 700 stores per year. Even during COVID, they actually managed to open 700 stores in 2020. And I think that really reflects the kind of business model that they have, which is very resilient.
They're a
So far this
monster,
year, they
bro.
opened 377 stores, which will put it again on track to being able to open at least 700 stores this year.
Okay.
Okay, so not only was it able to open more stores, it is also able to have a higher revenue per store. If you look at the 2022 number, the average daily revenue per store was about 77,000 Thai baht. That is still below the level that it was in 2019. If we were doing this webinar in the first quarter of this year, I would still be saying that the revenue it is generating is below the pre-COVID level. But the
Yeah.
good news is that by the second quarter of this year, it has actually surpassed where it was in 2019. So every store that it has now is actually doing better than what it was back in 2019 before COVID.
I wonder what magic did they pull in their stores for people to actually trigger happy with their fast foods or convenience. It's
Okay,
crazy, you know.
so the thing here is that they are trying to bring in more fresh food into the convenience store.
Ah.
And that is something that typically causes people to spend more. So it's not like selling you one bottle of water, but if you go to
Okay.
the
Okay.
stores, you might see like some cooked food there, different things that are more fresh that allows people to be spending more money in the store compared to where it was prior to COVID.
Okay. Okay. That makes more sense.
Okay, so it is opening up more stores, it's generating more revenue per store, and that is leading to a higher revenue for CPO. If you look at the revenue, I just put out the most recent quarter's numbers. the revenue was 232 billion Thai baht in the second quarter alone. That is an improvement from the second quarter of last year. And even if I compare with the first quarter of this year, it managed to increase the revenue compared to the previous quarter. So clearly, what we are seeing in terms of the improvement in consumer confidence is also translating to a higher revenue for CPO.
Okay.
Okay, go on to the next slide.
The net profit.
Yes. So as investors, what we want is the company to make a profit. And this is what we see for the profit number as well. If I look at second quarter last year, 3 billion profit. First quarter this year, 4 billion. And by the second quarter of this year, it is at 4.4 billion. So once again, translation of the higher revenue towards the higher profit. And that is what we saw in terms of the improvement in margins, because not only is it making higher revenue, but also better margin for every store that it operates.
Probably the fresh fruits garner a higher price and also higher margin, or probably they are actually making the store more efficient. Which part do you think?
So clearly, you are still a very strong analyst at heart by asking this question. So yes, it is actually that the fresh food is a higher margin product, and that is why they want to be moving towards the ability to sell more of this. I'm not sure whether that is the case in some of the grocery stores in Malaysia as well, but typically the fresh food is what earns you a higher margin.
I think generally I'm seeing a trend here also. Probably I also observe a bit on the petrol stations.
Yep.
Yeah, they're offering a bit more of freshly baked breads.
Yeah, correct. Yes. So that is what they are trying to push towards, so that at least you can buy something hot and not just like a factory made roti from the store lah. So I think that typically earns a higher margin, and that has helped them to generate a good profit from the improvement in revenue.
Okay. I shall jump to the next slide.
Okay, so I'm sure you will be able to do a better trading view analysis for us, but basically the key here is earlier we spoke about the Thai elections and how the new Thai government is trying to boost consumption. What we see here is that if I were to look at the past 1 month, we clearly saw a very big bounce in the share price of CPO after the announcement of the new Thai Prime Minister, as well as the formation of the government, because consumption is a very central part of the government policy. And remember what I said about giving people a handout?
4 km.
4 km, yes. So you can't spend it by traveling to Singapore or Malaysia. You need to probably spend it at a convenience store near your house, if not a grocery store. And I guess with that, investors thought that CPO is one of the names that would be a key beneficiary.
So that's quite ingenious in the sense that 4 km radius and this convenience store makes up 80%, almost 80% of the geographic location. They are actually peppered with 7-Eleven and Lotus Go Fresh, and pretty much they set a very good net in capturing the spending of the policy.
I think that's how investors view it, which is why we saw that bounce in the share price. But I guess generally the economy is still uncertain. Now we are seeing interest rates going up and uncertainty towards the trajectory, which is why after the bounce, the share price has also tapered off a bit. But if I was to think about any potential beneficiary of the Thai consumer spending, not just in the short term, but in the long term, then CPO will be a name that is positioned for that because of the very strong market share that they have in convenience store and also in the grocery store market.
And Gerald, probably can you share that by participating in tonight's webinar, how can we see that ourselves benefiting from, if I don't own a Thailand account, I have no affiliation with the Thailand bank, how can I actually participate in this CPO when I am actually very interested in it now?
Okay, so the good news is that it is also now easier for us to be having access to other markets. Okay.
Mm.
I said that I wanted to bring you all to Thailand, but now Thailand is coming to you because you can also buy these Thai companies, just like how you might be able to buy any stock on the Singapore Exchange. We have the Singapore Depository Receipts listed on the Singapore market in May this year. And we have seen in terms of what the chart is now showing you, that is effectively the Singapore Depository Receipt, which gives you underlying beneficial interest
Mm.
towards the Thai stock that is listed in Thailand. And that effectively is one of the ways that we can get exposure towards these Thai blue chip names.
Okay, that's interesting, and because on our Kentrade, I think we are connected to our broker in Singapore, and probably that's where they can actually get these goodies, right? Like CPO on SIA, right?
Yes. So I
Okay.
guess if you have this function, then it is as easy as buying any other Singapore stock like SIA or DBS or the Singapore REITs,
Hmm.
because they
Okay.
effectively
Okay.
function in the same way. They have the same trading hours. It's the same trading fees like trading any other Singapore stock. And it is one option that is now additionally available for investors who are interested in this Thai blue chip names.
So let's say if I were to buy a CPO SDR through my Kentrade portal, and from that context is like, will I be entitled for dividends?
Yes, you'll be entitled to
Oh,
dividends.
that's
Okay, so
interesting.
that is because as part of the Singapore Depository Receipt, actually there is an underlying stock in Thailand that is held in custody for you. And what we
Ah,
have is an SDR issuer, which in this case is Philip in Singapore, that will
okay.
then effectively handle all the administrative stuff for you. You don't have to
Okay.
find a broker for yourself in Thailand. Effectively, by investing in this stock in the Singapore market, you will have the beneficial interest, just like you were actually buying into the underlying Thai blue chip company.
Okay. Okay. That's very enlightening.
Okay, we'll go into a bit more detail on the technical aspects later, and I'm sure
Okay.
you have questions that I can help to answer later as well. But Adrian, do you want to show any
A
technical
quick one.
analysis?
A quick one.
Okay.
Let's see how is it. Then we will jump to the next one. The next one is actually very interesting. Also, what I think you're gonna share. Okay, this is CPO Thailand. Okay, let me share the button now. This is a very sexy chart, guys. This is a weekly chart of CPO, and if we were to look at the recent low, we will use the recent low as a reference. Sorry, the magnet is not working that well, or my keypad is not. Okay, 58. If 58 and 50 cent Thai baht. If from this chart, I think while on the longer term is trying to break out its downtrend. What I think in terms of what Gerald has shared on the confidence of the potential spending and also recovery and also CPO's ambition to grow, I think this zone here proves a very good, interesting collection point. Yeah, we can reference this viewpoint. Yeah. But I think that going in all out will always be not too good of an idea when we're looking something on a longer to medium term. Probably we can start allocating some to look into this two companies, AOT and CPO, for names that are not as driven by commodities. Yeah, I think it's a very good opportunity here. The stochastic is actually coming back to the normal levels. The next thing I think if I want to see a so-called formation, a formation of a mini trend here on the stochastic range. So if any case, I would like to see it turns after a while. And on a weekly chart, if I were to predict 1 or 2 more bars, probably in within a month's time. Yeah. So hopefully that helps you guys to have an idea. And a quick resistance point will be here, the higher range. So you're looking about close to a 10% upside if we were to trade on a range bound basis, if there's a stance that you want to take. And yep, I shall not steal the limelight from Gerald. Yeah, I'm coming back to his presentation now. All
Okay,
right.
thanks so much, Adrian, for the technical analysis once again. So at least we know what are some of our potential entry points to look out for. Okay, the last one is PTTEP. So after you have done your shopping in Thailand, you have visited this 7-Eleven store, you want to go back to your hotel, you might actually call a Grab ride, and that is
Yep.
going to be fueled by oil that is likely to be produced by PTT Exploration and Production Company. Okay, so it is a oil and gas exploration and production company, and it just has two products, crude oil and gas. Okay, so as a E&P company, PTTEP is one of the largest in Southeast Asia. I guess you have your equivalent, which is Petronas. But if I were to think about the whole of Southeast Asian and investable names, then PTTEP will probably be one of the few names that are leveraged towards oil prices, which is why it's gotten a lot of investor interest recently, especially as oil prices reach close to $100 per barrel.
Yep.
Okay, so where does it sell the oil and gas that it produces? Thailand will represent about 60% of its entire sale. It also sells to other parts of Southeast Asia as well as the rest of the world. But if you are in Thailand, more likely than not, the oil would be produced from PTTEP.
And they
Okay.
sell quite some gas also, right?
Yeah, so gas is actually a big part of their portfolio as well. And also, if I look at what this means, is that the company is also trying to move towards greener energy sources, especially for those who are more concerned about like ESG and so on. The company actually has got very clear plans to be able to achieve certain ESG targets over the next 5 years.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Okay, so effectively, for those who might not have been following the oil price, I hope this chart will provide you with a quick recap. So 2022, because of the Ukraine crisis, we saw the very big spike up in oil prices. Subsequently, as the tension started to ease, the energy crisis in Europe that many people feared did not actually come true. We started to see the oil prices started to ease to below $100 per barrel, and that actually continued to weaken through the first half of this year. But in the second half of this year, because the economy is actually fairly resilient, US growth has been fairly strong. Plus, on top of that, you've got some OPEC countries like Saudi Arabia actually limiting their supply. So oil prices started to bounce back once again. And at some point last week, we actually saw it reaching the $95 per barrel level,
Yeah.
which is driving people to start thinking about whether we'll start to see a triple digit oil very soon once again.
How would it affect you, Gerald, in Singapore?
How does this affect me? Everything is more expensive.
Oh my God.
So I guess
I don't have a clue of the oil price there. Can you share with us per liter how much was the pump like?
it's so expensive that I don't even drive myself.
Okay, okay.
Also, the other news that came out this week, just
The
as an
COE.
interesting point for everyone who's on the call today,
COE
yesterday
is
there
it?
was in Singapore to buy a car, you need a certificate of entitlement,
Yeah,
which is just a
COE.
piece of paper that allows you to buy a car. It's not even the car in itself.
Oh my God.
Yesterday it reached a record high level of 150,000 Singapore dollars, which is about 500,000 ringgit.
Bro, I think you should move over here. You can buy several properties with that COE cert, you know.
Yeah, it's not even the car in itself, it's just a piece of paper that allows you to buy a car.
Oh dear. That's almost like 600,000 ringgit.
Yes, that is 600,000 ringgit, yes.
Plus your car, you're looking about $1 million property in Malaysia. Yeah, why not
Yeah,
come over,
thereabouts,
bro?
yes, that you can only use for 5 to 10 years.
Oh my God.
So I
Okay.
don't have a car and I can't tell you what is the latest petrol price, but I do
Okay.
know that it's very expensive.
Okay. But at least the saving grace that the public transport is still bearable there because the people
Uh,
of Singapore are a lot more courteous. Hopefully, we're catching up in terms of infra, in terms of MRT or our aim. Yeah.
yeah, so I guess that is helpful for those who do not drive in that the public transport is still fairly accessible. So I guess the only other way that this oil prices is impacting us is really through the higher electricity prices.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so it may not be good for us as consumers, but for PTTEP, which is a oil and gas producer, what we see here is that if you look at 2022, the average selling price for the oil and gas it is producing went up to above $50 per barrel of energy.
Hmm.
That is higher than what it was in 2021 and 2020.
Hmm.
If I look at the average unit cost, it was actually below $30 per barrel of energy. And the difference between the selling price and the unit cost would then be its profit.
That is still quite a healthy range of margin despite the swing in prices, right?
It is. So if I look at the first half, because earlier we saw the chart that the oil price came down in
Yeah.
the first half of this year, even with the fall in oil price, it was still able to make a decent profit. So I guess that is one of the positives in that even if you look at oil prices, because the average cost of production for them is really fairly low, below
Hmm.
$30. So unless you're looking at oil prices being, say, $10, $20 per barrel for a persistent period of time, otherwise they will likely be still able to make a profit from the oil and gas that it is producing.
I think that's very critical in that sense.
Yeah, so I guess having low cost production is important. And hence, what this means for us as shareholders is that the company has been able to pay out a good dividend. If I look at the dividend that it paid out last year, $9.25 Thai baht. If I use that number and translate to the share price, it will mean a dividend yield of close to 6%.
Oh, that's very enticing now. You got me, listen, you got me
Yeah.
looking into it now. You see, my eyes are
So
bigger.
for those who are looking at a name that gives a dividend yield, but then just having something in your portfolio that you can hedge against higher oil price, just in case, of course, no one knows what is going to happen. If oil
Yep,
price was to go
yep.
to $100 per barrel, $150 per barrel, the good news is that you are still collecting the dividend while being able to hedge your portfolio at the same time.
So looking at this so-called DPS historical DPS chart that you have shown us, right? Judging from its payout ratio, do you have a hunch that potentially it will do a bit more because historically they have been trying to stay closer to the 50 range. So probably by closing the entire year and going forward with a better prospect on it could be higher.
I would say don't be too greedy, because what they're paying out is already fairly decent. But I
Okay,
guess the other consideration that they have is they also want to reinvest for growth, because I
okay.
guess as an E&P company, they want to be able to say find new fields so that like the oil doesn't run out. So that requires them to put in some of the
Paybacks.
retained earnings towards being able to drive consistent production growth in the
Okay.
long term, such that even if oil prices were to stay at the same level, they're able to raise their production on a year-on-year basis.
Okay. Okay, that's very enlightening. I like
But they
what
do
you
have
have
a
highlighted.
they do have a specific dividend policy to pay out at least 30% of their earnings as dividend. So I think the good news is that if I look across the last 5 years, they have kept to their promise of paying out at least 30% of their profit in dividends.
Governance pass. Very good.
Yeah, so I think that is something that we can take comfort in that if I was to look at 2022, the dividend per share was high, but even when oil prices were lower, say in 2020, they actually kept the dividend payout at a fairly decent level by raising the payout ratio in that year.
Yeah, can see that they are a company that actually take care of its shareholders.
Yeah, so I guess that's something that we can just learn from tonight in that it has a low cost of production and it actually pays out a decent dividend. Okay, so if I look at the share price, while AOT and CPO share price has actually been about range bound so far this year, PTTEP is the one that has broken out. It is the best performing amongst the three, really because of the higher oil prices that we have seen so far this year.
Yep. Let Shall I quickly jump to the chart?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption, guys. Okay, let me share my screen. Stop sharing. Share here. Okay. Quickly. EP. Okay. Coming in, coming in. Okay, here is the chart for PTTEP. Okay, here is wow, Gerald, I think this I have some familiarity with this stock. I think I made some recommendation because the moment I draw this chart out, I see some lines. So so far it has performed relatively well in terms of its trajectory and looking at how it's formed, right? It is actually trying to retrace now, which might present a very interesting opportunity. So let us draw a very simple trend line to see if it's valid, still valid. So if I were to join all these points down, Magnet is not really working. So let me delete this. I use array go. Yes. Okay, it forms a bit more better. So looking at if there's a retracement help coming in, which somewhat we can look into it, I would look at this horizontal line here. Too much line, huh? Let me zoom it a bit more. I will look at 161, 158.5 as a view that it should not break its level. If it looks to break even further in terms of its retracement, then I would want to straddle between on averaging between 153 and also 158 as a collection for PTTEP. That is because in the so-called shorter to medium term is actually trying to challenge this side of the resistance. So we are actually waiting for a turn here. Once it has completed a retracement and the moment it turns, it would potentially resume its journey to challenge its recent high. But of course, premise that would also premise on the direction on how our world is changing on a daily basis. So for PTTEP, I think we can take a bit more of a, if we were to participate, I think we can take a small bite to start with. Yeah. Back to Gerald.
Okay, so the number to remember is 158, correct?
Yeah, 158,
Okay.
153.
Okay, so that is really PTTEP for those who are interested to find names that give us exposure towards oil prices. And with that, I would have shared these three Thai blue chip names. And I will just give a very quick introduction around what are some of the risks to look out for. Number one, I shared earlier that the new government has been formed, but remember, it is made up of 11 different parties. So probably getting as complicated as Malaysian politics. And that is something that we need.
Entertaining. We
Okay,
wouldn't
so
use
that's
the
something we need to
sensitive
be
word.
mindful of. In that war, they have said that there are different things that they want to be doing. Sometimes it may not be as straightforward to be able to push through some of these policies.
Okay.
Okay. Next, if you are reading the newspapers for the last few days following the financial markets, the US interest rate has now gone up to a very high level, and there are concerns that it will remain higher for longer. And that is impacting all the emerging markets
Yep.
because the stronger the US dollar, the weaker some of these emerging market currencies are going to be. And that is something that might be of concern for investors
Yep. Hello. Hi.
I will share a bit more about the product if I go to the next slide.
Okay, sorry. Yep. Singapore Depository Receipts. Okay.
That's right. So effectively, with the Singapore Depository Receipts, there are three names that we mentioned about earlier. Number one, CPO. Number two, Airports of Thailand. Number three, PTTEP. The three stock codes, remember, TCPD, TATD, as well as TPED. Okay, so you can find them through the platform that you are trading Singapore stocks, your Kentrade platform, and they will be trading under these three stock tickers.
Okay. Okay. I'll be sure to check it out.
Okay, if I go to the next slide. So earlier I shared that they are issued on a non-voting depository receipt. So there's actually a share that you have actually issued on these companies that are listed on the Stock Exchange of Thailand. And what this means is that you have the beneficial interest in the underlying shares of these companies listed on the Stock Exchange of Thailand. Okay, so that is effectively what this Singapore Depository Receipt effectively does. And if I go to the next slide,
Okay.
effectively the benefits are three C's. Number one, cost simplification, because you don't need to find another broker to be able to trade these Thai companies. Through the platform that you are trading your Singapore stocks and REITs, you can effectively access this Singapore Depository Receipts in the same course, just like you're trading a Singapore stock and REIT. So it is convenient because you are effectively doing it in the same way,
Yep.
and effectively those are the benefits of trading in the Singapore Depository Receipts.
That's
Okay.
just curious, Gerald. If I'm not wrong, I think SGX trades a bit later than Bursa, that closes at 5 p.m. Am I correct?
Correct. So this will follow the Singapore trading hours, which are also different from the Thai stock market trading hours. So, for example, if there is a sharp spike in oil prices overnight because of some OPEC action, actually before even the Thai market opens, you can buy the PTTEP SDR on the
Oh,
Singapore market already.
okay. That could be a bit of an arbitrage. Or is
Correct.
it the
So
right
for
word?
those who are looking at different trading opportunities, if there's volatility between the Thai baht and the Sing dollar, if there's volatility, say, in the oil price, those are the opportunities that you can look at as well to be able to look at the Singapore Depository Receipt as an investment opportunity.
Okay, that's very cool.
Okay, and the next slide. So earlier you asked me whether you will be paid dividends or not. So here is a recap. You'll be eligible for dividends paid out by the underlying company. The only thing you need to be aware of is that you will not have voting rights because
Okay.
the underlying share is a non-voting class of the shares.
Okay.
So you will not be able to vote in the AGM or if there's any corporate action that is happening.
Okay. Okay. That's quite clear, and I think that for those that wants to participate in SDR as with voting rights, there's something for you to consider. But I think for me, I wouldn't even go to my condo's AGM, but that's me myself. So I'm in for the money. So yeah, it works for me.
Yeah, but just to be clear to everyone, because maybe some people like
Yeah.
to go and ask questions at the AGM,
Yes.
make
Yes.
sure that they have their voices heard. So we just wanted to be very clear that yes, you will get your share of the money in the dividends, but then if you want to raise your hand and vote, then as an SDR holder, you will not have the right.
All right, all right. I hope that make things clear for everyone. No voting rights, and other than that, it's pretty much business as usual.
That's right, yes. Okay, so
Right.
in summary, we see the investment opportunities coming through from ASEAN, particularly for the Thai economy, beneficiary of the recovery in global travel, and the most recent elections have effectively provided now a clear outcome that is also going to be boosting the domestic consumption spending. So,
Hmm.
to gain access to some of these Thai blue chip companies in a low cost and convenient way, then that is what the Thai SDRs actually offer you as a way to be able to do so.
All right, all right. And I think when for let's say for a beginner's journey, Gerald, when we are looking into foreign market, is it more advisable to look at opportunities that presents in the blue chip, or should we just dive into the small cap of a foreign market? And which one would you think is much more sensible?
I would think generally, if you are new to a market, always makes sense to start with the blue chips.
Hmm.
Okay, I guess they are called blue chips for a reason, in
All
that
right.
they are the backbone of the economy. They are established companies. So, like we saw earlier, airports of Thailand, 80% of Thailand's air traffic,
Yep.
CPO, 70% of the convenience store market in
Sapu all
Thailand,
growth.
PTTEP supply 60% of Thailand's oil. So effectively, they are the backbone of the entire Thai economy. Uh, Effectively, you are looking at these companies having been around for a longer period of time, tried and
Hmm.
tested business model that will usually present lower risk compared to, say, a new or growing company in the industry.
Oh, all right, all right. I do concur with your view, but just to dabble into, probably because sometimes when I'm too into trading, I might look for something with a bit of a high risk appetite. But when it's dealing with foreign market, I guess that's a good start. It's a really good start by starting with that. Yep.
If you all want some of the more higher volatility stocks, do share with us, and then we can see how we can share some of these ideas with you the next time. But for today's session, with the three names that we have discussed, hopefully it will give you a good introduction about some of these Thai blue chip companies.
Yes, and do extend Gerald some support. He's really into growing the financial wellness for retailers, and from his website, I think it is applicable to both shores and uh, every shore lah. Because financial wellness is something that is not talk about. We talk about physical wellness, we talk about mental wellness, but this is where we need to be a bit more diligent, the financial part, the wellness. So I think Bean Sprout as his aspiration in growing financial wellness in a very easy way, like growing a bean sprout, right?
Yeah, you managed to get that. So that's really the idea of Beansprout, in that it is easy, everyone can do it. And I
Yeah,
think that is what we want investing to be as well, where we can actually grow our knowledge as well
yeah.
as our wealth together.
Yep. So I do concur with Gerald's view, and hopefully what we can offer and bring to everyone tonight would be fruitful or help you to better navigate your investment journey. And if you have Q&A, probably we'll spend sometime like 5 minutes, you can just say, pop it on the chat. Hi, Gerald, is it okay that we spend another 5 minutes because I know we
Yeah, no
are a bit
problem.
overrun? Okay, yeah, you can pop it on the chat box here. If there's no response, probably we can just, enjoy our Netflix on One Piece. I mean, on One Piece. Yeah, correct, not in One Piece. Yeah. Okay. So far there's no response. For another few seconds, probably, then we'll call it a night. And yes, wait for a while more. Okay, probably we call it a night. Gerald, thank you for spending time with us, sharing your knowledge on the Thai market, and also a bit of your experience and also insights on how we can start our journey when we look into foreign markets, and also introducing such interesting product to us on SDRs from SGX. Do come back to Malaysia, give us a ring. We're Malaysian hospitality is there. Definitely. I believe Singapore is there too. I have quite a number of Singaporean friends that I met online through
Yeah,
games.
definitely looking forward to being back in Malaysia.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, if you are interested in finding out more about Singapore stocks, do share with us what else we can potentially provide you with as we find different investment opportunities that will allow us to be growing our knowledge as well as our wealth.
Yep, I think that is great. And if there's really no more question, we shall call it a night.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks everyone for joining tonight, and thank you, Adrian, for hosting this.
Thank you, Gerald. Hopefully, I'm not too rude. I'm still new in this, so yeah. Hopefully, if anything, just give me feedback. Yeah. All right.
Thanks so much for having, and we'll definitely remember 158 for PTTEP.
Yep.
Thank
158.
you. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Good night. Have a nice weekend ahead.